every 6 weeks with 2 weeks off, and then 6 weeks and 2 weeks off. And then it gets a little confusing around Christmas time because it doesn't quite line up, and we also do something for solstice. But we try to stay pretty much on that schedule so people know it's here. And you don't have to come for the whole 6 weeks. You can pop in and pop out depending on what your world is. So if this is your first time, welcome, and we'll have a chance to do that. But don't think it means you have to come for the entire 6 and now we've locked you in. So it's a drop-in group on purpose so that people can come here when they feel there's a need. Golden Will Retreat started 18 years ago. Actually, the grief group started 18 years ago. And the whole idea is Tim Rivera, from Rivera Funeral Homes, and I got together and talked about what this town needed. And what he was really tired and having a hard time with is people would bury somebody, have a ceremony, use those services, and then later on they'd come back and he wouldn't know what to do because that wasn't the end he was on. And at the same time he was starting to feel burnt out because he felt so heartfelt, but also didn't have these people would come back and be, I don't know where to go. That's when I arrived back in the town, and so we decided to start a grief group in Taos. And so I had just begun Golden Will Retreat, which I'll talk about later on. And so we wanted to, actually we got together, one of the very first reasons we were starting a grief group was actually suicide prevention. And as what we had noticed is after a lot of people had died, sometimes there would be more people who would become very suicidal. And so it started that way, and then it was relapse prevention, and then we realized it's just grief. It's just a chance to heal from any type of loss. And so I thank Tim, who continues to support and help us with this, and welcome.
Thank you.
And so from there it's grown to this, and it's so amazing that I'll go into the grocery store or something and someone will say, Ted, thank you for those grief groups. And I'm sorry, I don't recognize you. They're like, oh, I've never been, but I know it's there. So we also serve as a place that people know they can go to in a time of need, or they have a friend and they know it's here. So this group, thanks to all of you and Golden Will Retreat and Tim, has become a sanctuary, a place where people know that they can come and have permission to honor their losses. And I always say that tears, authentic grins, and boogers are beautiful here. And we don't have to clean up our faces, of course we can if we want. But just that permission, because grief, the emotional pieces within us, we don't actually get to control. But we do get to choose what we do with those emotions. And so it's so easy to forget to have permission that loss and healing from loss is messy. And yet we've been taught to be proper. So welcome once again. And so this group runs 6 weeks, and we'll be here. And as all of you are aware, thanks to the donors of Golden Will Retreat, Rivera Funeral Homes, as well as Golden Willow Counseling, and all the donors for Golden Willow Retreat, we've been able to keep this going so we have that place to come to. We usually start with some sort of prayer and end with a prayer or a song, but you don't want me to sing, otherwise you'll have a new loss. So, but also if you chose to bring a poem, or if you had a song, don't feel whoever's the facilitator is the only one that does those pieces. We push no religion, no spirituality. We honor people where they are. And that's really, really important to me. I think that's where a lot of wounding happens in the grief process, is somebody telling someone else how it should be done. So it's that individualized. And so I thank all of you. We start with 2 candles in the middle, which I'll do in a second. And then we usually go around the room quickly, especially on a night like tonight. And tonight we're just going to introduce, because this is the one night that I talk a lot. And it just sets the foundation. We call it the boat talk, and you'll see why. But it's really the talk on emotional healing from loss. We've had a tendency of combining grief and loss as the same thing, which is really difficult on our brain, because I know I don't like loss. It doesn't feel good. So if we put grief and loss together, then why would I like grief? Grief is the emotional healing process from a loss. So grief and loss are not synonymous. They're separate issues. We have loss. Loss sucks. And grief rocks. It gives us that chance to actually step into our new life. So even on my master's, it says master's in counseling with an emphasis in grief and loss. And it really should say master's in counseling with an emphasis on loss and then grief. But I'm not going to shred it. I'm going to hold on to my diploma. So, but just knowing that process, that's what it is. And it's very individualized. And grief is a lifetime process. The beautiful thing is a loss does not mean we have to be confined and defined by that loss for the rest of our lives. It doesn't mean we have to forget. So those are some of the things. Some of you know and some of you don't know. The way Golden Willow Retreat started was in a very short time period. I almost died, and then me and my wife experienced a miscarriage. And then soon after that, my brother died in a shipwreck up in Alaska. And this is my sister, so her brother as well. And then pretty quickly after that, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. I'm so glad you made it. Your mom's over here. I'm not letting you escape because it's so cool you came. And so then my brother died, and then my wife died 2 years after being diagnosed with cancer. And that changed my whole life. When she was diagnosed, she and I had a 1 and a 3-year-old. And so our world radically changed. And then 2 years later, she died, so I had a 5 and a 3-year-old. And then a few years after that, they died in a car crash with my mother-in-law. And it shattered me and decimated me and sent me on a journey. And luckily, even in the midst of just wanting to die and join my family, somehow I stayed on this earth, which I'm so grateful, and started a pretty amazing journey to the point of today. I'm so grateful for each breath I get to take. From that whole experience, I went to a treatment center for drugs and alcohol, which I didn't do. But my drug of choice, called My Girls, was gone, and there was no dealer. And I knew what craving was, because even today I'd do anything to get one more hit from them in the physical form. So from there, I was trying to figure out this God thing, because God didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Because if God was good, well, it was this happening to me, did that mean I was bad? So maybe there wasn't a God, but if there wasn't a God, why am I so mad at God? And then allowing that process to transform to a way that spirituality and higher power and God makes sense to me. And so after treatment, I went to ministerial school because God seemed very confusing to me. So I went there. And also there I met my present wife, Marcella. And one day I was a dean at a college by that point in North Carolina, and she said, have you ever thought about going back to New Mexico? So we sold everything, and we bought a funky 1987 beige RV that we named Shotgun Shirley, because every time we got gas, it would backfire 2 times, and off we'd go again. And parked it at my parents' house in Ranchitos, and they're so grateful it's not still there. And from there, we started Golden Willow Retreat, which is now an emotional healing sanctuary focused on grief, loss, and trauma in Arroyo Hondo. So I slowly became an Hondo dog. And there people come and stay with us, 10, 12-year-olds, and I built a little capilla out there, a little chapel. And it's the Chapel of the Little Angels. And so the mission of that chapel is it's always open and kind of warm, rather than always warm and mostly locked. And so people come and just spend time there and light candles and just have a place to be held, because in that free fall, it's nice to be held sometimes. And so from there we started Golden Willow Counseling, because we realized we needed services in town, which works with all types of behavioral health and mental growth, as well as we started an addictions program. And so we've grown from there, and I was always glad I came back to Taos after those few years I was gone. I knew I would without knowing it, because the whole time I was the dean in North Carolina, I knew it was 8 left-hand turns to get back to my parents' house from there. I-40 is very long, but that was my umbilical cord to bring me back home. So from there I got my passion to try to help others in that time of loss, because I'm sorry to say, as a society we've forgotten how to grieve. And luckily some people have remembered, but mostly we've learned to disenfranchise our losses, which gets us stuck. And I believe then hurts the entire world. So I get to have the opportunity humbly to try to help somebody, hand them a flashlight, and from that flashlight they can bonk me on the head, they can use it as a shovel, or they might turn on and realize there's something there that helps them. So luckily I know that's not my job. So I'm grateful you're all here. Like I said, this is not a religious group. Permission, 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 wherever you are. And we have a lot of people in here, and each person's coming from a different space, and we get to honor that. From the research I've done, and from experiencing working with this for a long time now, there are certain themes that put us all in that same club, the club we don't want to be in. And so hopefully we can have some commonalities that help us realize that we're not sick, and we're not crazy, and we're not alone. And that in that collective we can actually heal. And healing does not mean forget. It just means I don't have to be confined and defined. Another piece that makes grief difficult is we think that it's supposed to be all okay. You know what? It still sucks that my daughter's died. But I'm not confined and defined by that. And I'm so grateful to be alive. So we'll talk about those things as well. So if you jumped on the wrong airplane, we're about to take off. So if you're coming to a different group, like next door, a new baby's being born, then you can choose how that fits into this for you. So, but welcome. And really, this is a humble piece of honoring everyone who's been here. So we're going to start, if that sounds okay. Jump in if you want. Usually we don't have a camera there, just so you know. The camera will only be on me, and it won't be being used when we're talking and that sort of thing. It's actually just to film me at the chalkboard for a training tool for our staff. So you don't have to worry about that. And if you don't believe me, you can always ask, and you can watch it and see.
Claire can testify.
There you go.
I testify.
She sees it's only you.
So that's just know that. If for any reason that's bothering you, we can always turn it off and use that another day. So please know that. There is a bathroom there, but it might be difficult, so there's another bathroom around the other way. And so with that, we do have a few agreements. Maybe we can get a new piece of paper for these agreements.
I'll print out notes.
These agreements are just to help keep us safe. So the Golden Willow Retreat Grief Support Group agreements are: each person's grief is unique. Please respect and accept both what you have in common with others and what is unique to each of you. Grief is not a disease or a sickness, and there's no quick fix for what you're feeling. Do your best ability. Try not to set a timetable for how long it should take you or others to step on and do the healing path. Feel free to talk about your loss and your grief process. However, if someone in the group decides to listen without sharing, please respect his or her preference. That includes yourself. Please respect your own preference if you choose just to listen. Please practice actively listening to what other members of the group are saying without interrupting, allowing each person equal time to express him or herself so that a few people don't monopolize the group. Tonight, I monopolized the group, but in the rest of the weeks, there's definitely a lot more interaction and talking in that piece. Please respect others' absolute right to anonymity and confidentiality. Thoughts, feelings, and experiences shared in this group stay in this group. Please do not use other members' names outside of the group, as well as their stories. We're a small enough town that our stories also go right back to our names. So please take your experience here rather than someone else's story. If you choose to share out here, share what your world had on that. Some of us are mandated to break confidentiality for the protection of any person when there's a concern that the person or another may be in danger to him or herself or to another. Please, if you can, be on time. If you're late, don't run away. Still come on in. You're definitely welcome, and we don't have a hall monitor. And if you must arrive late or leave early, please respect the sacred space you're entering or leaving. And if you're allowed to, please shut off your cell phone. I know one person's on call tonight, so otherwise please put it on vibrator or whatever those things are. And if you get a call, if you don't mind, step out into the hallway or right out there, just because we don't need to listen to your call. This is a support group and not therapy. Please avoid the urge to give advice unless it's specifically requested by a group member. If a member solicits input, share ideas that helped you if you experience something similar to that. Recognize that thoughts and feelings are neither right nor wrong. Please enter into the thoughts and feelings with others without trying to change them. If you feel pressured to share but don't want to, please say so. We respect your right to quiet contemplation. And to keep the group safe, please refrain from any type of solicitation, sexually, romantically, or professionally. Can we all agree to that?
Thank you.
Also, to our best ability, but no one gets shunned, let people get their own Kleenexes. If they ask, that's different. Because what all the studies have shown is when you hand someone a Kleenex, 85 to 95% of the time they will change whatever emotion they're in. Even if it's perfect intent in doing this, I'm saying, please clean up your face, you're making me uncomfortable. But if someone asks, they've done their part, give them a Kleenex. We also don't pat people on the back, because what was one of our very first soothings? Was to get someone to burp. And so right there, once again, please move out of your discomfort so I can feel better. If you got a partner or something here and you tap their leg, great, but really, let's honor those spaces. So besides that, this is our group, and jump in if anything, because each person in here is an expert of their own individual grief and process. So please do that piece as well. So with that, let me light 2 candles.